it looks like 2011 is going to be very, very tough. We have ELECAM in place. My question is, given your expertise, and I know you are known in the country, have you reached out to ELECAM to offer your advice, or have they tried to reach out to you to seek assistance? Because I think you're well placed to advise and, so that we don't go the wrong way. We're all looking up to 2011, but the ultimate is we want peace. If there is a transition, it should be peaceful. Thank you.
Peace, for me, is not the optimal. Peace, for me, is the basic, is the fundamental. We have to build upon it. We cannot be satisfied with peace alone. That's what I mean. Peace is good, but we can have peace, we can have economic development, we can have a viable civil society, we can have a vitality in our economic and political systems that makes every Cameroonian proud of being a Cameroonian. I think if we set the bar at that and we use the concept of peace as a scale instrument, that we would defeat some of the purpose. We also have to avoid an interpretation of peace that could be viewed as minimalist, as saying peace is the absence of armed conflict. And the fact that we are not in armed conflict means that we're doing well. I do go home very often. I'm in constant communication with people at home. And I think people are aching in a number of ways. Our society is very polarized, and I'm concerned about the polarization. There is polarization between the North and the South. There are things that people say behind closed doors about each other that they ought not to say as citizens of the same country. There's polarization, as we talked earlier, between Anglophones, Francophones. When you go even into the North, there's polarization between Northern Muslims and Northern Christians. There's polarization between the Centre-Sud Est and the rest of the country. There are people who are fearful that they'll be victimized. There are concerns that we ought to be addressing proactively so that we don't create an environment where those concerns burst to the surface. The events of 2008, for example, took a lot of people by surprise. But there was one instance where pent-up frustrations burst to the surface, and people died. And people died. And for me, in this day and age, we as a country should have surpassed this stage where 50 or 70, depending on who you talk to, people would perish just because they had grievances and they acted out those grievances, and it resulted in a situation where there was use of live ammunition and people died. I don't think that's healthy. So I think we're all for peace, and that should be taken as a given. We should look for ways to build upon that, to see peace as the minimum that our people should have, but not as the exclusive thing to which we should aspire. I haven't made any outreach efforts on my part to ELECAM because I am aware of some of the controversy that surrounded the putting in place of ELECAM. I am aware of the long protracted negotiations and consultations about putting in place an independent entity to run the elections. And that ELECAM, the structure of ELECAM, was not necessarily the first choice for a lot of Cameroonians. But when the decision was made that it would be ELECAM, that a number of Cameroonians, including those that initially may not have agreed with the entity, were willing to go along in the hope that the people that would be appointed to run the institution would be people who, by their own credentials, would reinforce citizens' confidence in that entity. I think the manner in which some of the individuals were chosen and the controversy surrounding the appointments did leave a sour taste in the mouths of some Cameroonians. And I think a number of people are still waiting to see whether these people will lean over backwards to show their commitment to an independent and credible electoral process. And I think under those circumstances, it's appropriate to give them time to figure out for themselves what signals they want to send to the 18 million Cameroonians about their own independence and their attachment to giving the country elections that we could all be proud of. I'm aware of the fact that the United Nations was recently invited to organize an assessment mission to look at the needs of ELECAM and the possibility of conducting credible elections in Cameroon in 2011. I'm not yet privy to the findings of that mission. I don't know if at some point the findings will be made public, but that is to say that there may be some levels of conversations about how the entity that organizes elections in Cameroon could be strengthened to win the confidence of the people of Cameroon that it could organize credible elections. I agree with you that if there's going to be a transition in Cameroon, it has to be peaceful. That's everybody's wish, and that's why all too often it's important to speak out well in advance and to alert all of the parties involved that the risks are too high and we shouldn't put our country and 18 million citizens through the risk of having elections that would be viewed by a majority of could be viewed by a majority of Cameroonians as neither free nor fair. We wouldn't want to put our country through that process, and like you, I'm hopeful that everything will be done to make sure that if there's a transition in Cameroon, it would be a peaceful transition and one that the country can build upon.